Hello and welcome to Building Better Language for Academic Writing. I'm Luan.
And I'm Lisa. Today's episode is all about something that can truly boost your writing, using stronger verbs when introducing topic sentences in argument essays.
That's right. We're going to talk about verbs like demonstrates, emphasizes, and supports, and show you how to make your arguments more powerful.
By the end of this episode, you'll have a clearer understanding of how to pick the right verb to introduce your ideas effectively.
We'll break it down with examples, have a short quiz, and leave you with a tip for mastering this technique.
So let's get started.
You know, Lisa, when I first started writing essays, I always used really basic verbs like is or has. My teacher once gave me some advice that stuck with me. She said, if you want your arguments to stand out, you have to choose verbs that show power. That was when I first started thinking about stronger verbs for my writing.
That's such a great point. I remember a time when I handed in an essay and my teacher circled every single time I wrote says. She told me, your essay isn't a conversation. It needs to assert, not just say. Since then, I've always used verbs like argues or claims.
Yes, exactly. It really elevates the quality of your writing. For example, instead of saying this point says, you can use verbs like suggests or implies. It makes your topic sentence much more engaging.
Right. And speaking of verbs, another one I love to use is emphasizes. It's perfect when you want to make something stand out in your argument, like highlighting an important detail.
Highlights, that's another one. It's such a dynamic way to show that something is important without being repetitive. I've used it a lot in my argument essays.
Do you know what verb I find really useful in academic writing? Establishes. It's fantastic when you're talking about building a foundation for an argument. Like, this research establishes the link between exercise and mental health.
That's a great one. And another strong one is demonstrates. It's perfect when you want to show evidence supporting your point, as in, the data or the evidence demonstrates that students learn better in smaller classes.
I love how precise it is. You're not just telling your reader something, you're showing it, proving it. Oh, and speaking of showing, illustrates works well too. It gives your reader a picture of what you're talking about.
Yes, and it's much more vivid than just saying shows. It paints the scene for the reader. For instance, the experiment illustrates the effects of sleep deprivation.
You know what? I think we're on a roll here. How about proves? It's one of those verbs that you use when you're absolutely certain about your evidence.
Definitely. But it's important to use it sparingly. Only when you're really confident, like in scientific writing, the findings prove the hypothesis correct.
That's a good tip. Oh, and another powerful verb is challenges. It's great when you're opposing an idea or argument. For example, this evidence challenges the traditional view of education.
Yes. And in the same vein, refutes is excellent when you're directly arguing against something. Like, this study refutes the claim that online learning is ineffective.
Supports is another key one. I used it all the time in my academic writing. It's simple but strong when you're backing up your claims with evidence.
Absolutely. And validates is a great alternative when you're confirming something. It has that extra layer of credibility. This research validates previous studies.
I'm also a fan of reinforces. It's perfect when you want to strengthen an existing idea. The data reinforces the argument that early education is critical.
Oh yes, that's one of my go-to verbs too. And when you're emphasizing a discovery or innovation, you could use reveals. It adds a sense of discovery to your writing, like, the study reveals new insights into climate change.
These are really great examples for using power verbs rather than be, says, or shows. And to wrap up, I think clarifies is a perfect verb to use when explaining something complex. It's like you're making everything clearer for your reader.
Exactly. And we've covered so many powerful verbs here, Lisa. Each of them can add so much strength to an essay. When we use these in our topic sentences, we make our arguments not only clearer, but also much more persuasive.
It's true. And hopefully, our listeners can start to implement these verbs in their writing right away. It'll make such a difference.
So, before we wrap up this section, let's think back to the verbs we've covered so far, and illustrate the meanings of these verbs in the context of an argument essay on whether online learning is more effective than traditional learning.
Wow, such a great way. I will do first with the first 7 words, and you will continue with the rest.
Beautiful. Now, go ahead.
Okay. Demonstrates. Example, Traditional classroom education demonstrates its value through direct, face-to-face interaction. Highlights. Example: online education highlights the flexibility that allows students to learn at their own pace. Illustrates. Example: this method illustrates how traditional classrooms encourage active participation. Emphasizes. Example: online learning emphasizes accessibility, making education available to a broader audience. Supports. Example: face-to-face interactions in classrooms support the development of critical communication skills. Offers. Example: online platforms offer students the ability to access resources from any location. Promotes. Example: traditional education promotes stronger teacher-student relationships through in-person interaction.
Well done, Lisa. Let me continue with other strong verbs for argument essays topic sentences. Encourages. Example: the flexibility of online education encourages students to manage their time effectively. Reinforces. Example: group activities in traditional classrooms reinforce collaborative learning and problem solving. Allows. Example: online education allows students to engage with course materials at any time, accommodating different schedules. Facilitates. Example: face-to-face discussions facilitate deeper understanding and engagement in traditional classrooms. Enables. Example: online learning enables students to tailor their education to their personal needs and pace. Provides. Example: traditional classrooms provide immediate feedback from instructors, aiding in student progress. Advances. Example: online platforms advance educational accessibility, especially for those in remote areas. Finally, we've got strengthens. Example: in-person communication strengthens student social and academic skills in traditional settings.
That's quite a list. Now, it's your turn, listeners. Think about how you can start using these verbs to enhance your writing. It might just be the edge you need to improve your essays.
Exactly. And remember, variety is key. Don't just stick to one verb. Mix them up to keep your writing dynamic and engaging. And that wraps up our today's episode. We've covered so many powerful verbs that can transform your topic sentences and overall writing. From demonstrates to proves, these verbs don't just tell, they show, argue, and solidify your points, making your essays more convincing.
Absolutely. Using these verbs can really elevate your academic writing and make your arguments much clearer and stronger. And, as we always say, don't be afraid to vary your word choice. The more variety, the more engaging your writing will be.
That's right. So now it's your turn. Think about how you can incorporate these verbs into your own writing. Practice with your essays and see how much more impactful they can become.
Thanks for joining us today, everyone. Don't forget to practice. And if you enjoyed this episode, share it with a friend who's also looking to improve their writing skills.
Until next time, keep writing and keep building better language for academic success.